Another way is avoidance. It's not like I am avoiding people altogether, but just creating a safe haven for me to retreat when my sensory overload takes over me. The most common form of avoidance is creating a quiet and orderly home environment. This usually involves keeping the amount of noise in the home to the minimum. For example, avoiding the use of TV and/or radio as constant background noise. Sometimes, I will end up resorting to using earplugs at certain time of the day, as well as certain places that will be too loud for me. Another way to control overload from sound is through the use of headphones, a pair of remote headphones, that can connect to any device around the house, which I am currently looking for to solve my sensory overload to some noises. Some people use noise-canceling headphones to reduce the amount of noise they hear, which again, I am hoping to find something like those in near future. Sometimes, if there is a TV playing in the background, depending on what is on, especially action movies or some drama with sirens, solution for me when this arises is that I will keep the TV off and I only play music. Others report keeping light at low levels, sometimes through the use of dimmer switches. Another way to control sensory overload in the home is through order or reducing the sense of clutter. Now, many of you will be saying, why clutter? Clutter to me is frustrating, as I do like my space when it comes down to either preparing meals, or just having to do some other works that involves more room than just a tiny gap. Yes, I will admit that I am a perfectionist, and that I like law and order most of the time. So, I know where everything is, and I keep my personal space clean and tidy. Some people may call me a clean freak. But truth of matter is, it does not matter, as this is just how I go about doing my daily tasks and routines. Another form of prevention is to rest up ahead of big events. When family or friends get together, I rest for several days beforehand. Others may report that they minimize the effects of too much sensory information by responding quickly when they observe overload. When I am tired or really pushing things, my sensory overload is worse. The best thing that I can do is to drop what I am doing and totally rest. A final prevention strategy for me, which I do quite a lot, is to do one thing at a time. I try to only do one thing at a time, with very clear lists of what I will achieve next. E.g., put on a load of washing, pay the phone bill, have lunch. I try to complete the first task and then go and look at my list for the next task, so I won't hold all the tasks in my head at once. Many people assume that we Aspies or autistics feel less human than a neurotypical person. Correction to you all, that is the wrong way of thinking about us. We are all humans, as I have said before, and that we are who and what we are, despite our difference to you all. Sometimes, for most of us, we may fixate on just the little matters that people do not even notice at all. Yes, I have been told that I am imagining things, or that I am crazy, or that I must be stupid to think that way in the first place. Whatever you think about me as I am writing this, I am still human, and I do have feelings. Strong feelings and desires as such. I am a person that is spiritual and sometimes feels something is about to happen before it happens. Knowing what triggers us is not always the same as knowing what it feels like. A person who is not on the spectrum calls this a sensory trigger response of a fear or phobia of some kind. Yet, they may be right or onto something here. Here are more hypersensitivity to some senses that I experience and encounter often in my everyday life. Sensitivity to smells, yes. You heard that right. Many odors do get me to a sensory overload, such as certain fragrances like your colognes and perfumes. As some are really strong for me, and it does not help with some of the people I hang around, who tend to spray on too heavily on themselves. Do not get me wrong, personal grooming to me is important to a standard where we should both be able to stay in one room together. Some of these strong fragrances cause me to have headaches, dizzy spell as if the floor is spinning around so much that I cannot stand anymore, as well as feeling nauseous. How do I overcome this problem? Again, it is the same as before. I just retreat somewhere else to give myself time to recuperate, as well as having time out for myself. These are similar solutions to how I go about sensitivity to some noise in large groups. Sensitivity to taste, I know that many of you out there probably think that it is either I am a fussy eater, or another way of looking at it is that it's a matters of the mind. Well, there are some foods that I can still tolerate or try to push myself to eat the foods, despite my allergies to them. I tend to make sure I eat the right foods to avoid me getting itchy. I can tolerate some spicy foods and sour foods, but when it reaches some degree of hotness and sourness, it leaves a burning sensation in my mouth and throat, as it really burns sometimes. It will then make my tongue feel dry and like sandpaper, as well as bringing my taste buds to life and that they were dancing on my tongue. Sensitivity to touch. I am the total opposite to some of my Aspie friends. I am fine with having people around me giving me hugs, as I love those. Hugs are good for us as it releases hormones that make us feel good. Yet, there is a technique that you will need to have when hugging me. I tend to not like getting smothered, as it does get overwhelming to a point where I cannot breathe, and then I tend to have panic and anxiety attacks. Another one is when it comes to some clothes that I try to wear, as some may feel itchy on my skin, like ants crawling all over my skin. Sometimes, some clothes may feel good to wear, depending on what style it is and fashion. I so love fashion. Stimming. When sensory overload occurs, it will lead to some autistics to stim. According to Wikipedia, stimming is defined as a typical jargon that is used as a particular stereotypical form of behavior of a repetitive body movement that is done based on our conscious continuously, that usually then self-stimulates with one or more senses in a regulatory manner. It has been proposed on a theory, however, that it is designed to promote sensory arousal, as this helps autistic people out there to normalize themselves in their everyday life and activities. How I would define stimming is that it is an involuntary movement that requires some sensory input from the brain and the environment that we are in. Yet, some of the movements we do, we may not be fully aware at the time we are actually doing them. Some movements that are done by the autistics can irritate, annoy, and frustrate others that are associating with them at the time. This will lead to the others getting angry, frustrated, impatient, and also aggressive towards them. As I said before, there are a few NTS that still need to learn and practice patience and empathy towards others, as well as having the understanding of how autistic people work. Many of us autistics, however, do find it relaxing as we stim, as this is a form of relaxant. Stimming, however, does allow us to focus on the sensitivity and relaxing parts of the brain. I have noticed with me that when I stim, it is because I am getting overwhelmed or underwhelmed, or sometimes even anxious or stressed, depending on the situation I am facing, as well as the environment I am in. I am sure that some of the people that are autistic can agree with me that this does occurs for them also when stimming persists. Sometimes, stimming can lead to self-harm, but not always. Yet, if it gets out of hand, it will need to be trod with care and caution. Types of stimming that occurs in autistics. There are many types of stimming that autistics do, and I am going to share a little bit, as some of the ones that I am going to list are what I do to calm myself down. They are as follows. Clapping and flapping of hands. Finger tapping on furniture such as desks or even on top of kitchen counters. Tongue clicking. Finger wiggling and touching at the tips of their fingers. Facial twitches. Singing and humming. Talking to themselves and answering back. Advice to parents. How to help your child when your child stims. Never yell at a child stimming because you feel it's getting too overwhelming in the environment that they are, as this could make them worse. You can try recording their stimming and replay it to them, and explain to them what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. Encourage physical activity, as this will make them run out of stim faster than you realize. Encourage them to try and socialize with other people. Change the environment that they are in that has caused them to stim. You need to do this slowly for them, so it does not add too much stress and confusion. For example, if you are in a loud place like a cafe that has too many noises, or take them home and create a safe haven for them by creating a sensory room for them. When anxiety persists in the child, work out what is causing the anxiety and prepare for the new situations that they are facing, and teach them some new skills that may help them cope. Rewarding your child when the stimming stops and after you ask them to do something for you. Teach your child that there is a time and a place for them to stim. For example, maybe while they are at home, they can stim in their room. Literal and lateral thinking. To me, literal thinking is another benchmark of an Aspergers syndrome. I have mentioned it in my video blogs, if you have been following them through with me on this journey with AS and the other conditions that I have got. For example, if you and I were to be together and planning something like going out to somewhere special and at the last minute, the plans we had to be cancelled, or your plans changed, it will be courtesy and respect to let me know that. I do not assume or think that you are making an excuse just to get out of what we planned in the first place. It's just courteous to tell me, so that my mind does not go overloading with a few ideas of my own. You see, as I said before, with my sensory overload, I tend to have my drive on overload with a lot of thoughts, and many people hate seeing me doing this time and time again. Yet, I feel when it comes down to it, they need to know what they are in for when they are socializing with me. I am the kind of woman that would love it, if you can tell me straight away if you think that you cannot make it. So that we both can get on with our day, or whatever else we may have planned. I am sure to stick to whatever we have planned to do. Let's say, it is also about building the trust factor with you, and that I am giving you my whole and undivided attention and all. Yet, be aware that my trust comes at a cost. It is like a fragile glass, once it is broken, it will be hard to fix. Now, lateral thinking is a different matter, or thinking as well. It will become so daunting, as well as to the point where it will overwhelm me. For example, to give you a better understanding into what I do in my everyday life is like, it is what am I going to wear, what to eat, and sometimes how much to eat or buy. I tend to get overwhelmed and nervous as well. Sometimes, I do not like to be rushed into what to wear and all, as part of me feels that I need to be well suited for the occasion and outing we are going. I guess you can say I am a perfectionist to a point where everything has to be set and done a certain way. Yet, I am now trying to be more open for more possible solutions and outcomes to what needed with my attention. I will, however, try to adapt to the surroundings I am in, as well as trying to accept your feedback alongside with my participation, and also, making few compromises along the way between us will be good. Lateral thinking is defined as an idea generation and technique that can be used for problem solving. Those new concepts can be taken into account in some novel way. Logical thinking, on the other hand, can also be defined as any idea carried forward. Yet, the sideways lateral thinking most of the time provokes fresh ideas or changes. Logical thinking can overcome or try to overcome problems for us to tackle head-on. When I socialize with people, I do find it hard to decipher what is a joke or not. As sometimes, some of the jokes that have been said to me have been quite hurtful, and I am not the kind of girl that would want someone to play around with to the point where my feelings get hurt. Sometimes, some people make jokes when they are serious. Yet, it is how you go about setting your tone and more towards me, to know that you were joking. I will admit that I may overanalyze some things that come my way about the situation that I'm facing, but maybe you will thank me later on why and what I am doing. I am not trying to be too much of a problem solver, that is just me. I am looking at other ways to solve the problem before I come to a conclusion or even a solution. I do accept, however, that I do make mistakes like anyone else. I am human after all, and I am not perfect. I do tend to, however, struggle with yes or no questions sometimes, to the point where I am feeling like being pressured to think the same way as someone else. There are many people I have come across who do not seem to want my input or view on what they are sharing with me. I do, however, need a few clarifications here and there on some parts of the conversation when it involves me understanding them. Then, I can come back to you with everything in my mind, clarify to you that I got it right. Sometimes, when I do tend to socialize with others around me, I can be too honest, and when it comes that, some people will tend to get a bit angry. So, if you ask for how and what I see in something, do not under any circumstance growl at me. As you asked for what you want out of me. Therefore, it is up to you in how you will go about it. Sometimes I do speak